Philip J. Fry thought he had come to terms with the reality of life in the year 3000, but it is only now, in the holiday season, that he realizes what it means that everyone he knew and loved died centuries ago. As Planet Express decorates the office for Christmas, now simply called Xmas, he bemoans his loneliness and the 20th century Christmases with his family that he will never again experience. Leela flees the room in tears, and Hermes reminds Fry that while his family is gone, Leela is an orphan and never got to spend Xmas with her family at all. Fry decides to cheer Leela up by buying her the perfect Xmas gift, but his coworkers warn him to be back before sundown. 200 years ago, they explain, a robot Santa Claus was created to distribute gifts, but due to a critical programming error, he invariably judges every person to be naughty and stalks the streets on Xmas Eve, murdering anyone he comes across. Fry spends hours searching for a gift, but nothing seems right. At last, he finds what he's looking for at a pet shop, a parrot. Perhaps its colorful plumage can bring some light into Leela's life. But shortly after leaving the store, Fry drops the parrot's cage, and when the door opens, the bird takes the opportunity to fly away. Fry gives chase, and as sunset quickly approaches, he corners the parrot atop a clock tower. But as he reaches out to capture it, he slips. The wayward delivery boy is only saved from a fatal fall by the timely appearance of Leela, who grabs his arm and pulls him to safety. As they walk back to the office, Leela tells Fry that he didn't need to get her anything. She's used to loneliness. But perhaps together, they might not be so alone. The moment is interrupted by the appearance of who else but Santa Claus. The homicidal robot declares that both Fry and Leela have been very naughty and are therefore condemned to death. They flee, running into Bender along the way, with Santa in pursuit. In the end, Santa manages to corner them. As they bid each other farewell, he fires a rocket launcher, and certain death draws near. But just then, the parrot appears out of nowhere and flies directly into the path of the missile, detonating it early and saving their lives at the cost of its own. Fry, Leela, and Bender manage to escape back to Planet Express, but who soon slides down the chimney but Santa Claus? But with everyone working together, they manage to drive him back and away, though the murderous automaton vows to return next year. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past. So, a Christmas episode in midsummer. I'd make a Christmas in July joke, but we're recording this in July, but it won't be live for non-patrons until early August.
It's currently 88 degrees Fahrenheit here.
Yeah. So I could get on board with a lot of the extreme amount of nudity in this episode.
Patreon.com/SpacePod3K. Listen to new episodes a week early for only $3 a month. I mentioned the Patreon. I had to get this shill in here. And anyway, if you're listening to this 4 months after the fact, happy holidays. So, man, I love this episode. This is just a really good, very funny, very sweet episode.
It's also a really interesting take on just the Santa Claus mythos, because you don't see that. You very rarely see Santa Claus as a killer, unless you count some movie like Santa's Sleigh.
Or it's some other character like Krampus.
Yeah, but in this case, it's it's the robot Santa Claus, and actually is a pretty understandable backstory. His threshold for being nice was set way too high.
Yeah, but where did the idea of anyone who is naughty being worthy of death come from? Just seems disproportionate.
Yeah, that is questionable.
He's a robot. He doesn't like people.
But it was made by Mom, so...
True. Although, they just call it the Friendly Robot Company in this episode. They don't say Mom's Friendly Robot Company, so I wonder if maybe they hadn't really worked out Mom being in charge of the robot company yet, or if they just retconned that in later. I'm not sure.
Or maybe she hadn't acquired the company at that time.
Well, because if you remember in her previous appearance, she just sold robot oil, not necessarily robots.
Vertical integration. You wanna you control the production and also the stuff to keep it going.
But I love the joke at the beginning of this episode of Conan O'Brien's head being too big for the jar.
So even before that, there's the sign outside saying, children under 90 are free. Like, first of all, it's like, only old people go here, and also, people live a lot longer now.
They're trying to attract all those baby Yodas.
Although the global warming joke is a lot less funny now since we're actually living through the effects. We already talked about how hot it is outside.
A nuclear winter would be nice at this point.
I don't know about that, but...
I mean, I do like... I just like that fact that it's like two apocalypses cancel each other out. Global warming was counteracted by a nuclear winter. It's like, okay.
It's a funny joke, it just... You know.
And of course, they don't discredit the global warming. They don't discredit it as it happened. It's just it worked out.
Well, hopefully things will work out.
And they do a whole episode about global warming later.
Yeah. Which I'm sure we'll get into lots of stuff about later, but...
Oh boy, yeah.
I love that it's kind of a really subtle joke. We have Zoidberg going down sideways because he's a crab.
And the professor's skiing while asleep, which is... actually really funny.
And he ends up winning a medal.
Yes. I do have one, I actually have a couple issues with this episode, despite loving it. Like, for instance, the X in Xmas is not actually an X.
It's a chi.
Yeah, it's the Greek letter chi, or chi, for the first letter in the Greek spelling of the word Christ.
Yeah.
So it's not an X, so them insisting that it's an X it irks me. Like, it's possible...
Well, of course, it is of them mispronouncing it as well. So they're mispronouncing the way that it shows up.
Yeah, it's possible that the meaning got, like, lost or distorted over 1,000 years. It does bother me a little bit.
Who learns Latin anymore? Or Greek in this case?
It's a dead tongue, like French.
Well, it's Greek to me.
They mentioned something about a war of 2012, which, in retrospect, after the fact, now, it's funny because there was the whole apocalypse happening thing in 2012.
It might have been a reference to that, actually.
I don't know. The whole Mayan thing, that craze was not until a little bit later, so they couldn't have done anything like that with this episode at the time.
Maybe. I do know that, at least in 2012, we did have at least, our continued Forever Wars going.
Mm.
So the Xmas cards, there's actually a bit of a logical weirdness there. Like, who's sending Fry cards? His entire family and all of his friends outside of Planet Express died 1,000 years ago. It really doesn't make any sense for him to get any when Leela doesn't. Like... She's existed in this time period for a lot longer than he has. She should know more people.
Maybe who would be sending in cards? I guess if anybody's sending in cards, it'd just be like it's probably like corporate companies. Like corporate is like, thank you for your patronage this year.
Yeah, junk mail.
Yeah, but then that raises the question of why Leela didn't get any. Again,
Maybe she doesn't sign up for those things.
Maybe. Like, I get, there's a point to the scene, it's to establish her loneliness, but, like, there is that logical weirdness there, you know what I mean?
Well, if we're talking about logical weirdness, they go out to get an Xmas tree, and they say that the pine tree went extinct. Like, what were they crashing into when they were skiing? Those looked a lot like pine trees.
They were probably fake, considering they're able to disappear just like that, well... break down, at least. Trees down.
God, that was another great joke.
I like how it was animated as well.
Oh yeah, it's really, really nice, smooth animation with them kind of folding down and then unfolding.
And actually, I have another issue with this episode, just like with the whole conflict here. Because, like, okay, Fry is painted as being in the wrong for being oblivious to Leela's pain. But the thing is, she hasn't really been all that forthcoming about it. And on top of that, This was Fry's first Christmas, or I guess Xmas, in the future without his family. I can't blame him for being focused on that.
Right, it's like, and he to his credit, he does kind of work his way out of that very quickly because he likes Leela. He wants to see her happy.
Yeah.
So I don't really think it's it's definitely not a problem with him being oblivious, though. He's got his own stuff to worry about.
Yeah, it's just the way the episode frames him as being just in the wrong here just bothers me because, like, yeah, he has plenty of reason to be focused on himself right now. And again, she has not really been very open about her pain.
Yeah, pain isn't a contest, you know?
Yeah, exactly. They can both be upset. They can both be lonely. They can be lonely together. Which, actually, this episode also gave a lot of really cute fuel for their romantic arc as well.
Oh, definitely. I like that the mistletoe was actually mistletoe and not holly, as a lot of times it is misrepresented as.
I remember TZ was laughing as we got to that bit, but so I assume you noticed that the rabbit in the pet shop was Bongo from Life in Hell.
Yeah, it was Bongo from Life in Hell.
Gotta get that obscure Matt Groening lore in there somehow.
Which that's one thing that's really just kind of for the fans. Like I only know about Bongo kind of because of the jokes that were in these kind of series like Simpsons and Futurama. But like if you read the comic books, it's published under the label of Bongo Comics. So,
well, I mean, it's Matt Groening. Of course, he would keep that little reference to his first comic going.
It's like me using Commander Odo as my mascot.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little personal in-joke.
The pet shop. I would absolutely love an electric snail. Those things look so cool.
Yeah, that thing looked really cool. Just the concept of an electric snail is so nifty.
Can we have fire slugs too?
I want a tiny giraffe.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Isn't a fire slug just that one Pokemon?
Maybe. Maybe that's why I said that.
I would get a tiny giraffe and I would have one of those tiny fruit salad trees.
Yes. Little miniature zoo.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I loved giraffes a lot, so I imagine I probably, if it was something that existed, I'd ask for one for Xmas.
I mean, would your parents get you one, though?
I mean, probably not, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't ask.
Fair point.
Well, you wouldn't want a swarm of lizards?
Well, nowadays I would.
I mean, I think maybe for you, the ideal would be like one of those genetically recreated, like cloned dinosaurs.
I mean, we have birds.
I suppose. Come to think of it, the meteor that killed the dinosaurs was probably the greatest ratio of stone to birds in history.
Right, yeah.
For once, rock beats bird. Flying.
I can't claim credit for that joke. I found it on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that one going around on Twitter. In fact, someone linked that to me this morning before we recorded this.
I think the best moment in this episode was just the Leela, you saved my life. I'm going to get you so many lizards. And her little smile.
And she actually seemed receptive to that. That's what's great.
I've seen the internet, well, because she knows that, that it's his way of, being thankful. Because she knows him. She knows what he means by that. But, like, I've also seen the internet joking about this scene as an early example of the so-called himbo girl boss dynamic, which, I mean, I can't really speak to, but I felt I had to bring that up.
I haven't heard of that one, but I understand it.
It's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, himbo girl boss. I never really considered Fry a himbo, but...
Yeah, no, Fry is not a himbo. He's dim, but...
He's a dimbo.
He's not muscle-bound, so he does not qualify as a himbo. Just, I feel like we're diluting the meaning of the word himbo.
He doesn't have the beef.
One of my favorite jokes in this thing was just, it was really kind of simple and straightforward, but just them falling off the digital clock.
I think that was a reference to Safety Last, that one classic film.
Well, yeah, holding on to the holding on to the hands of the clock is obviously the reference to that sort of thing. They've been doing that sort of cliche for a long time, but holding on to the hands of the digital clock as the numbers kind of change through, and then you look at the progression. It's like, okay, 3, 4, then it drops down to the middle one, 5, 6, then 7. Now there's nothing underneath this. Like, yeah, that actually works out really well.
I remember reading that apparently they deliberately timed that so that the time displayed on the clock in that scene would be accurate to the actual time when the episode first aired.
If you look at the end credit sequence, it shows that it's like 7:58 or something, and or 7:58 or 8:58, and that's when the episode originally aired. And so, like, right at the end of the episode, yeah, that would have been close to the top of the hour.
So this episode had a couple of notable firsts. We have the first appearance of Evil Robot Santa, and the first appearance of Tinny Tim.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love how absurd the concept of Tinny Tim is. Like, he's a crippled robot. It's like, fix him.
Why would you? Well, no, he was clearly built that way.
Yeah, he was clearly built this way.
The crotch is built... Yeah, what's the point? Why would you do that?
In order to teach robots that they can suffer as well, I guess.
What does that accomplish?
I found it funny at the end when Santa Claus said he'll be back when you least expect it next Xmas. Which is when you'd expect him to show up.
I think that's the joke.
Well, yeah, but still.
Actually, speaking of Robot Santa, I did you notice that the music during the chase scene was this unconventional arrangement of Deck the Halls?
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Such a nice little touch. This episode was also the first use of one of Hermes' other catchphrases, just adjective noun of place, like in this episode, Sweet Lion of Zion.
I saw someone who actually they got Phil Lamar to say this, and then they recorded it, and then it like kind of went viral on the internet. They got him to say "Sweet Celestio of Equestria."
Oy.
Oh my goodness. Ugh.
Oh yeah, TZ, didn't you do that one MLP podcast at one point?
Yeah, a while back.
Did you ever finish that, or did you just...
we ended up finishing the series, but we stopped doing the episode just because nobody was watching, and it was a lot of work for nothing.
Entirely fair. I mean, I don't even know how many people are listening to this podcast, though I do appreciate every one of those listeners.
Yes, thank you all very much.
Yeah, our Twitter account's got a couple followers. I mean, you gotta build the momentum.
Yeah. We get a few returning characters, like the robot priest, and there's a brief moment with one of the mutants.
I love every appearance from Lionel Preacher Bot, just because he's such a funny character.
He looks like one of those old-fashioned radios.
Yeah. And the way he talks, very stereotypical preacher kind of voice.
Just exaggerated to the point that it's inherently pretty comical.
Like, of all the scummy things Bender has done, going to a robot soup kitchen for free food is one of the scummier ones.
Yeah, it's pretty vile.
Especially the fact that they ran out early because he had eaten all of it.
Yeah, okay, the issue there is less that he went and more that he was just hogging all of it and taking it away from people who actually needed it.
Yeah. It was that gluttony that was the real issue.
Yeah. I feel the need to stress that the issue is that and less that he was pretending, just because the idea that, someone might be pretending to need help is often used as an excuse to deny people help.
True.
Like, I have legitimately had people tell me, don't give money to beggars on the street because they could be scammers. And it's like, okay, so what? There's two possibilities then. Either I help someone who needs it, or I don't. It doesn't really materially impact me either way, and it could help someone else.
Even if they have resources, it's more resources now.
Yeah, and realistically, how much are they going to get running a scam like that, honestly?
Honestly, you can actually make a fairly decent amount of money each day as a panhandler. You can make a few $100 a day, honestly.
A few $100 a day isn't really all that much.
Yeah.
it depends on what your expenses are, but I mean, it's enough for some people.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, don't automatically assume that people are going to be scammers, and even if they are, so fucking what?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It says more. It says more about them than it says about you. If it's all it says about you is that you gave money to someone who ostensibly needed money. What it says about them is that they scanned money off of someone. So it makes them a jerk. It doesn't make it say anything about you.
Yeah, like, okay, I actually have a story. Like, I want to preface this with, I love my dad. My dad is generally a really good person. I highly respect him. But there's this one story that he said, that he shared years and years ago that I still remember, that I didn't really have the wherewithal to question at the time, but nowadays I would kind of call him out on this, where he saw two people outside. I think he was like, I don't remember where he said he was, but he saw these two people, which he assumed was like a father and daughter, and they had a sign that said hungry. So rather than give them money, he went to a hot dog stand and bought a couple of hot dogs and brought them to them, and like the guy gave him a dirty look, which like my dad assumed like, oh, they were probably scamming for money. I'm just like, you assume that, but did you not stop to consider that maybe one of them has a dietary restriction, like an allergy, or maybe they're vegetarian, or you don't know their life? Like, when you like, this is the same issue that I have with like people saying like, oh, food stamps should only be usable on shit like beans and rice. You shouldn't be able to get like more expensive food. And it's like, people need, a well-rounded diet to be healthy. Like, you need to get like fresh fruits and vegetables. And also, again, you don't know if someone has a dietary restriction. You don't know their life. It is not your place to judge how they spend the money that they need.
People deserve more than just surviving. They should be allowed to thrive.
That too, yes, absolutely.
I'm not quite sure what my thoughts on that story are, because like, I mean, if he is giving like a dirty look just for him giving food, I mean, if they are hungry, like of course, speaking of my personal experience, I don't really have any dietary restrictions or anything like that. I have a lactose sensitivity, but it's really nothing that bad. So like, if I were starving, I wouldn't be picky of like, it's a cheeseburger and I can't eat cheese. So no, I'd eat it. I'd put up with it, or I'd scrape it off or something. But it's like, if they really are hungry, then yeah, the dirty look is kind of a dick move on their part. But I mean, it shouldn't affect their ability or willingness to give things to others.
I'm just like, I just want to counterpoint with you mentioning your thing, because like, I am severely lactose intolerant. Like, I could not scrape that cheese off of like a cheeseburger. Like, if I ate that, even if I scraped the cheese off, I would be horribly sick for pretty much a full day afterwards. So I would not be able to eat that cheeseburger. So I'm just, that's why I'm saying you don't know if someone might have a dietary restriction or whatever. Like, or hell, maybe it could be like a severe allergy enough to kill someone, because those also exist. That's my point. You don't know. So, like, if someone is, begging, like, even if it's just for food, give them the money, don't give them food, just because, again, you don't know. You really don't know these things. You can't judge someone based on that brief kind of interaction.
True. There's a similar anecdote that I heard. There was this TV show on, I think it was Comedy Central, where the guy would just kind of go around scamming people, but it was more for, he did it for comedic stuff and for comedic purposes. But there was one that it was actually a fairly positive scam, that he talked to like a local fast food place, and he's like, yeah, we have a couple of undercover cops out in the front that are posing as a pair of homeless people, and we'd like you to bring some food out to them. Like, don't tell them that it's from anybody, but and they actually did it, and they weren't cops; they were actual homeless people.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty positive interaction. Just getting people to bring them food.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, just in general, don't give homeless people food. Give them cash, unless you're not carrying cash but do have food, which, like, I mean, that's something. But you don't know.
Or if you would ask, or you could even just ask them if they would like anything in particular.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like a one and done situation, or you could ask them if they need additional help, if they would need help to get job applications out. I don't know.
Like, I'm sorry to keep harping on that drum. It's something that I really do feel like needs to be drilled into people's heads. Like, and honestly, whenever, like, one of these scams does come out, the thing that really infuriates me is, like, now people are just going to distrust people more. Like, I once, years ago, heard about, like, this guy who would run a scam in the New York subways where he would just, with a torn pocket, like a torn shirt pocket, and would, like, go onto the subway and claim that he was, like, some rich businessman and his wallet had been stolen. And he would make fairly decent money per night. And, like, there was this whole thing, and just thinking about that, I'm like, congrats, now you're just making it harder for people to, like, take it seriously if that actually happens to someone.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the big issue is that their whole takeaway from this is not this person was an asshole, and it's like, oh no, now I guess I'm never going to give to homeless people anymore. It's like, no, that makes you an asshole too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've gotten really sidetracked from here.
Yeah, why does this keep happening to us? The gift of the Magi joke.
Yeah, that's a great joke.
Yeah.
Finally, Zoidberg looks as pretty as he feels.
There was one joke. I mean, it was pretty dark. The whole suicide booth in the food court.
Oh God, yeah. That there's a line this time of year.
Yeah, but it makes sense because of winter depression and all that.
See, I've heard, like, both ways about suicide rates around the holidays. Like, I've heard from some sources that, like, yeah, that it gets more people commit suicide around the holidays. But I've also heard from other sources that suicide rates are not actually affected by time of year. I'm gonna look that up because now I'm curious and I don't remember which one.
I mean, I don't imagine it's a huge difference.
Okay, conclusion, yeah. Contrary to popular belief, depression and suicide rates do not rise around the holidays. In fact, apparently, people tend to be less likely to commit suicide during the holiday season, perhaps because of an increase in available emotional support.
There you go.
True. Though I wasn't saying the holidays, I just meant winter in general.
I don't know why this myth persists. But yeah, there you go. There's a positive takeaway, some interesting thing that you've learned now listening to this podcast. People are actually less likely to commit suicide during the holidays, contrary to popular belief.
There's another bit of irony with Zoidberg celebrating Xmas despite being Jewish-coded.
Well, I mean, yeah, but he's not explicitly Jewish.
No, but it's also like the fact that he's getting he's of course getting these cards, and he's just so proud of his nephew.
I mean, I have also participated in, Christmas stuff with my friends and acquaintances despite being Jewish, just because, they want to do something around the holidays. We want to just, be there with these people.
True. And of course, this episode, Christmas or Xmas, is fairly secular.
Yeah,
it has been, at least in our society, for a very long time. It may have its roots in ostensibly a Christian background, but then of course you get into the whole pagan Tenenbaum tradition and all that stuff, and it's just this whole mishmash that at this point it really is a fairly secular holiday.
Now, see, I would argue. I would kind of disagree with that assertion because it is still very much a Christian thing. It's just that Christianity is so normalized and overwhelmingly the dominant culture in our society that we don't really think about that so much. In fact, for instance, like the entire reason that American Jews put so much emphasis on Hanukkah, despite it being a really, frankly, minor holiday, is just due to its proximity to Christmas.
Because, they have to be louder in order to, or it could be the fact that, like, Christmas not just as a holiday, but it is so commercialized.
Yeah.
That you would be, even if your company has no religious stance, you would be foolish to ignore Christmas because that's leaving money on the table. So I suppose it's not so much that it's become secularized, it's that it's become so normalized and so capitalized that religion has only a very minor connection to it.
Well, frankly, the teachings of Jesus have very little part in modern American Christianity these days anyway.
Yeah. But imagine 3,000 years in the future, it's even more separated from its roots.
Yeah, by that point, probably. I mean, hell, even the name, like, they've literally taken the Christ out of Christmas by that point. But yeah, I overall really like this episode. It's very funny. There's that really cute Fry and Leela stuff. It's just... I'm not usually big on Christmas specials, but, like, again, Jewish, never really, been my thing, but this episode was really good.
Yeah, it's just sweet overall.
Yeah, this is one to definitely add to your holiday playlist.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If you have a playlist of, like, Christmas specials, make sure this is on there. Of course, the playlist of Hanukkah specials consists of the one from the Rugrats, and that's about it.
8 Crazy Nights. And...
I'm not a huge fan of that movie, but it's not like we're exactly spoiled for choice, yeah.
The episode of Friends with the Holiday Armadillo.
I honestly can't stand Friends. It has not aged well. It is a very frustrating show to watch.
But before we get back into more late-stage capitalism stuff, I guess we should wrap the episode up.
Okay, I'm just going to point out something you probably did not expect to hear in a Futurama podcast, but things you learn while watching Friends just marathoned on Netflix, as I did a few years ago. Ross and Rachel are horrible people who were consistently horrible to each other, and they should not have ended up together.
Oh, absolutely. Ross did not deserve Rachel didn't deserve Ross.
Neither of them deserved the other, frankly. They were just both awful.
True, yeah, but like Rachel is absolutely, like, Ross is totally out of her league.
I mean, frankly, for every horrible thing she did to him, he did something equally horrible to her. That's sort of my point. Like, neither of them was good for the other. On the one hand, she deliberately sabotaged his marriage to someone else. On the other, he very specifically cheated on her, something that no one let him forget for the entire rest of the series.
They were on a break.
So he claims.
Okay, yeah, we are definitely getting off topic.
Xmas Story. Really good episode.
Next episode, we continue to talk about Friends.
If we continue like this, it'll also be a Friends podcast for too long.
Don't eat birds you find in the street.
Good advice.
That's where that's where he gets all his food from.
I mean, that explains why it's so terrible.
He's trying his best.
And be sure to give blood this holiday season. Not necessarily yours.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your 3 voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. Theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can hear more episodes of Space Podcast 3000 on YouTube or at soundcloud.com/SpacePod3K. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early at patreon.com/SpacePod3K. Follow us on Twitter at SpacePod3K. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew go looking for romance in Why Must I Be a Crustacean in Love?